It is really the planned economy which is going to lead to economic chaos, and it is the supposedly unplanned chaotic market economy which is the only way to order economic activity in a rational way. Today is the 50th anniversary of Friedrich August von Hayek receiving the Nobel Prize in Economics. Yeah, first of all, it's interesting that the Nobel Prize lecture has relatively little to do with the subject which he won the Nobel Prize for. The Nobel Prize lecture is separate from that. It's more like a critique of the economics profession, certainly the way it was going at the time, and you could say still does today. It was a critique of how economics had become a highly formalized discipline, and a discipline which tries to imitate physics. So economists try to reduce everything to mathematical models, which is a methodology which has its merits for some purposes. But Hayek thought that in that way, economists were losing sight of what they should really be all about, which is, well, economics is in the end a social science. It's a science about how people behave, and it cannot imitate the methods of physics or chemistry or natural sciences that deal with inanimate objects. Yeah, so the Nobel Prize was in part for his contribution to what was called the socialist calculation debate. That was a debate in primarily the 1920s and 30s about the feasibility of a socialist planned economy, where there were no real-world examples of it yet. Even the Soviet Union had only just begun with the process of economic planning. And it was a theoretical argument. Is it possible to plan an economy in that way? And you had some economists who were saying, yes, a planned economy is in fact a more rational way of organizing economic activity, because it gets you beyond the chaos and the anarchy of the marketplace, the kind of economy where nobody's really in charge. You just have lots of people doing their own thing. Nobody coordinates it. There was a perception that a planned economy is just a more rational and coordinated way of organizing economic activity. And it was the Austrian School of Economics, of which Hayek was part, which said, no, you've got it exactly the wrong way around. In a socialist economy, that is the kind of economy where you will get chaos, because in a socialist economy, you can't have economic calculation in the conventional sense. Economic calculation requires market prices. In a socialist economy, by definition, you don't have market prices. And that means you can't work out what is an efficient and what is an inefficient way of producing goods and services. It's the supposedly planned economy, which is really going to end up being an unplanned, a chaotic economy. Yes, you will have people in charge, people drafting 5-year plans, people being able to order others around, being able to say, we're opening a big factory here, we're shutting down a factory there. But these people, even though they will be notionally in charge, they will have no idea what they're doing, because they don't have market signals, they don't have the economic knowledge that is required to organize economic activity. And so the Austrians, Hayek first and foremost among them, said it is really the planned economy which is going to lead to economic chaos, and it is the supposedly unplanned chaotic market economy which is the only way to order economic activity in a rational way. Yes, he was influential in a way. So there is the famous anecdote of Margaret Thatcher slamming a copy of a Hayek book on a table at Conservative Party gatherings and saying, this is what we believe in. Now, to what extent this was really true is a matter of debate. So the anecdote that certainly happened. It's just that feeling that Hayekianism is really what guided the Conservative Party. Well, that was a bit one-sided. So we had a relative of Hayek's who used to come to events here, who said that that was not necessarily his interpretation. He did not necessarily see Thatcherism as an embodiment of his ideas. He was actually a bit more standoffish. He did not necessarily see that as he did not necessarily see the Thatcher government as the government that put his ideas into action. But there was undoubtedly a time when Hayekian ideas were taken seriously by politicians and in academia as well. And that remains the case to this day. A while ago, I read a book by a left-wing academic, Jeffrey Hodgson, who is a former socialist. He still considers himself on the left, but he has moved from socialism to social democracy, a form of a market economy with a welfare state with some regulation. So he wouldn't call himself a free marketeer, but he moved away from socialism, and he cites Hayek, is in part because of Hayekian arguments that he moved away from a belief in a socialist planned economy. So even left-wingers can benefit from reading Hayek. They don't need to become full-on Hayekians, but the sort of left-winger who makes their peace with the market economy, they often cite Hayek as an inspiration, as somebody who made them question the idea that planned economies are feasible or desirable. It is Hayekian insights which made these people reconsider their beliefs and made them realize, no, actually, a market economy has some strength. A market economy has some advantages that a different kind of economic model just cannot replace. Well, we've seen in recent years a resurgence in the popularity of industrial policy. So what's sometimes called Matsukatoism, because it was Mariana Mazzucato who put that back on the agenda. If you take Hayek seriously, then you would be very cautious about the feasibility of industrial policy for the same reason that you would be very skeptical of the idea that economies can be rationally planned. Industrial policy would then just be a milder version of it. It would not lead to a full-on economic catastrophe in the way that socialist planned economies do. You can have capitalist economies with a degree of industrial planning that are still prosperous, but probably still less prosperous than they would have been if they had just adopted a non-interventionist free market strategy. And it is for the same knowledge problems that Hayek already identified. A Hayekian insight is that economic activity is essentially a trial and error process. We don't know in advance what works. We don't know in advance what makes a successful economy successful. We don't know how to set up a successful industry, a successful company. We need to try lots and lots of different things and gradually work out over time what works and what doesn't. And this is a process in which you will get unforeseen results. You will get ideas that may initially seem completely implausible, that once you put them to the test in the market, they suddenly start to work and everyone is surprised. And that's a process which that's something which only market economies, where you can test lots of different ideas, can do. And if we look at at business history, what we see is that lots of companies that are successful now, or lots of products that are successful now, lots of industries that are successful now, were initially dismissed by industry experts. You had knowledgeable people saying this is never going to work. You had famous examples including the Beatles getting rejections from lots of record companies, from people who knew the industry very well, but who said there is absolutely no market for this type of music. Nobody will ever want to listen to that. And we know that didn't age well, but that's not because the people who made those decisions were stupid. It's just that so many things in economic life are unknowable. And that's why we need this open-ended process where people can put their ideas to the test, to the market test. A lot of things will fail, probably most things, but a few things will work, and these will often be very implausible things. Now, if you have industrial policy strategies, you need to have somebody in control who knows in advance what's going to work and what won't. And that presupposes a level of knowledge which it's just very unlikely that any actor in the economy has that, whether that's a politician or a technocrat or an institute of economic experts. There's just not going to be anyone in any economy who has that sort of knowledge. And therefore, it seems very unlikely that somebody can replace the market process. Well, without Hayek, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be here on any day. It was his ideas that inspired the foundation of the Institute, but also the specific form that the Institute took. So it was Hayek's book, The Road to Serfdom, from 1944, which won over the future founder of the Institute of Economic Affairs, Anthony Fisher. And it was another Hayek publication called The Intellectuals in Socialism from 1949, which is basically the closest thing we have to a blueprint for the future IEA. It was in that text that Hayek described a particular theory of how political change happens. His idea was that it's not good enough to try to persuade a politician or a group of politicians or a political party of your ideas. You need to have a climate of opinion in which the right ideas can thrive. If you don't have that, it's not going to help you if you have 5 politicians who agree with you, because if these politicians are isolated, if they feel like the climate of opinion is against them, they will not be able to do much. So Hayek said you need to win the battle of ideas first. You need to win over the opinion formers first. And he did not say what an organization that tries to do that would operate like on a day-to-day basis. But nonetheless, if you go back to that Hayek text, The Intellectuals and Socialism today, you will realize, well, this is basically what we're trying to do. This is basically the closest thing you have to a roadmap for the future Institute of Economic Affairs. So he is very much our indirect founding father. So if we had to name ourselves after a person in the way that our friends from the Adam Smith Institute do, then we would undoubtedly be the Friedrich August von Hayek Institute.